What is up, sports geeks? It's your host, Josh, here back with another episode, joined by Alec for more fantasy football, as always. And dude, we are this close to sweeping. Last week, we went 5 of 6. I was saying Najee's going to get 100 plus rushing yards. He does. You were saying JSN's going to have a huge role this week. He's their leading receiver. I mean, Njoku has a great week on National Tight Ends Day. Great week from us. The only miss was Javonte. Just didn't have volume. I mean, it was just a weird game for him. But we went 5 of 6. I think that's the second week in a row going 5 of 6 of guys outperforming their projections. And I think this is we keep saying that this is the week for 6 for 6, but we keep going 5 for 6. So I'm serious. I think this might be a 6 for 6. But other than that, I mean, really quick, the YouTube's telling me that over 96% of you guys are not subscribed. If you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Follow the other socials too. They're free. They're easy. Other than that, though, I'm shutting up and turn it over to you for your first player.
Yeah, so week guy 1 this week, I'm going to go Kareem Hunt. He's facing Tampa Bay, and he's kind of been our bell cow the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And speaking of bell cows, he's the Chiefs' bell cow until Isaiah Pacheco comes back. Just purely based on volume, I really don't care what he's projected. He's probably going to outpace that just due to touches and volume. Last week, he still had 21 carries. The efficiency really hasn't been there yet, but if he's going to get 20 plus carries a week, he's an instant start.
Yeah. And it's the same thing that we said last week, right? Is if you're going to give him 20 plus carries, 20 plus touches, and you're on an offense that's going to move the ball, the likelihood of you getting a touchdown, which we've seen has been pretty consistent of Kareem Hunt getting a touchdown, at least one, is so high that it's hard to sit here, look at that and say, yeah, we're going to turn that down. Yeah. So no, I love Kareem Hunt. Like you said last week, until Isaiah Pacheco comes back or until Kareem Hunt gets hurt.
Yeah.
He's got to be a must start. So I love that. My favorite one of the entire season, which probably, as I'm saying this, it's probably going to be the one we're going to go 5 for 6 again. And this is going to be the one that holds us back probably after I say this. But it's Brian Robinson against the Giants. This Giants defense, rushing defense specifically, is terrible. And it's the reason I was on Najee Harris last week, right? And it made so much sense. And it did, because Najee Harris ran all over them this past week. Brian Robinson is in a very similar spot. If Jaden Daniels is back, assuming nothing goes crazy, right? They're off this absolute high of a win. Assuming he doesn't have any setbacks, and we know with his injury, hopefully that's not still lingering. Jaden Daniels is a real big threat on the ground. Brian Robinson rushing against this Giants defense is got to be their kryptonite. He's going to go for 100 plus, and I would be willing to bet he's going to get a touchdown too. I would expect, 15 plus out of Brian Robinson, I think seems really safe. A boom week, I would see that coming here, and maybe even like 20-ish points.
Yeah, no, I love him this week, and just sprinkling a couple PPR catches. He's due for a big week for sure. No, yeah. I love that one. So number 2 here. So I'm going with a guy that you probably drafted 7th, 8th, 9th round, hoping that he would eventually get back to a full workload. Nick Chubb's going to have a full workload, I think, this week. They're ramping him up. He went from like 38% of touches or snaps to like 60% last week. It doesn't really matter to me if Jerome Ford is playing. I think he's going to be the number 1 back in Cleveland. It is a tough matchup against the Chargers, but Jameis has revived this offense. It's awesome. And I think Nick Chubb's going to slowly get back to pre-injury form. I don't know if he's ever going to get back to the 6 yards per carry, but not a lot of people do. But I really like Nick Chubb this week. Just from we've been successful the last really like 7-8 weeks on just picking guys that have volume, and I think Nick Chubb's going to have volume going forward.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And Nick Chubb, it's coming, right? And we've known it's coming, and he hasn't had a boom week yet, but the volume's been ramping up. The volume's been ramping up. I think this is set up in a way that you're not playing a powerhouse. You're playing the Chargers, right? Who are a decent team, but you're not going to be in a negative game script. So you're not going to be in a spot where it's like Nick Chubb can carry the ball 10 times in the first half, but he's not going to touch the ball. He's only going to have 3 or 4 carries in the second half because you're chasing the game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns are winning this game, or it's going to be close enough that you can run well into, within maybe your last possession. So I think Nick Chubb's set up here for 15 to 20 touches. And
Yeah.
when you're giving him 15 to 20 touches against a rushing defense, that's okay at best.
Yep.
In the Chargers, I'm going to be smashing that.
Yeah, he had 16 carries last week. So if they're giving him, I think they let him sit a little bit longer so that he would have the full workload sooner.
Yeah.
Also, thinking on this, their bye week is after this week, so they might load him up this week. That's what another reason why I kind of like it.
Yeah. Well, your bye week is next week, but you're also in kind of like the way that Jameis like sparked your offense. You're almost in like a must-win week, right? Like you're looking at your record, you're 2-6. It's not good, but if you can win this week and start to build some momentum, like if you lose this week, you're probably like, all right, season's done, right?
Yep.
But if you win this week, maybe you can start to build some momentum. At least in the Browns locker room, they're probably thinking that. I don't think they're making the playoffs at all, but I like Nick Chubb here. Nevertheless, my second guy here, I'm going to Devontae Smith versus the Jaguars. So I think that Devontae Smith had, 2 weeks ago, he had a terrible week. This past week had a much better week. And he's got a matchup here against the Jacksonville secondary. That's bad. The only situation in which I think this could get screwed is if Saquon runs for 200 yards and they're winning the game by 30. That's the only situation I think that could get screwed on. But realistically, I like Devontae Smith here. I think he's probably going to get that 5 to 7 catches range. And, as you get bye weeks, I know you drafted him to be a starter, but he hasn't been as of late. As you get bye weeks sprinkled in, maybe you still have an injury or two in your receiver core. I like Devontae Smith this week. He's got a good matchup against a secondary that just sucks at guarding anything over the middle, anything out of the slot. And I think that's where Devontae Smith might find himself this week, in which he's going to have a good week.
Yeah, and I think kind of going forward, Devontae Smith, he's going to be like a weekly play. Like last week, the Bengals can't guard. They can't cover anybody. Yeah. So AJ Brown. So if they're facing a good secondary, AJ Brown's going to get his no matter what. It's just if there's actually enough volume left for Devontae Smith to actually get his. Yeah. And this week is one of those weeks where he's a smash play. You have to play him.
Yeah.
He could go off this week. Him or AJ Brown could go off for 140.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you like to think between the two of them, they're probably going to put up 185 receiving yards. You just really hope that AJ Brown doesn't put up 150 of those, right?
Unless you have AJ Brown like I do. Yeah. But no, I totally agree. No, I
totally agree. And on the flip side, for you, then you're really hoping Devontae Smith doesn't put up 150 of them, right? But if you're telling me that the two of them combined are going to put up 185, maybe even 200 receiving yards, I like Devontae Smith to at least have 6 catches for 80 yards somewhere in there. So, and then you have the upside of a touchdown in there. So I really like Devontae Smith here.
Yeah, I love it.
Over to you for your third.
All right, so my third, he's on fire. I'm going Cade Otton here.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think it's going to keep up with the 10 targets a week. And especially last week with the 2 receiving touchdowns, kind of got a little bit lucky on those. But I'm not saying he got lucky. I'm just saying that's not sustainable for a tight end every week to get 2 touchdowns. But Chiefs are 32nd and worst in giving up fantasy points to tight ends. So I really like Cade Otton this week. Could be a negative game script for him. Baker has shown the last couple weeks where when they are in a negative game script, they are going to chuck the ball around the yard. And if he's going to get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 targets in a tight end market that's not very good, it's going to be good for him.
Yes. I'm all over Cade Otton with you there. I like him a lot. He's going to have a good game script. He's got a good matchup. Those things, and he's going to have volume based off of their receivers here. In what we saw last week with your first week without Evans and Godwin, and they peppered him with targets. So another thing I want to touch on here, my third guy is Tony Pollard here against the Patriots. But before I get Tony Pollard, Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, you should be starting probably because of this pass. If you're in a PPR league, definitely because of the pass catching volume. There's nobody to throw the ball to on this offense other than like Cade Otton, which means that Baker's going to, you're scheming Bucky Irving and Rachaad White to touch the ball in the passing game 4 to 5 times a game each. So if you're in full PPR, they should be, pretty much a lock in for starting until you get burned by them realistically. Even if Evans comes back, they might be. So I know I have Irving in a couple leagues now, and I'm stoked about that. But they're not either. Bucky Irving and Rachaad White are not part of the 6 this week, but maybe add them in. It's kind of like last week how we said Lockett and Lockett, and who did not have a good week. And
wasn't a part of the 6.
But he wasn't a part of the 6, right? We said Lockett and Jaden Reed. And Jaden Reed had a decent week last week, but those are guys that like they're not our must starts, but they're guys that at least keep on your radar. I think those two might be for this week. My third though, Pollard here against the Patriots. He's coming off a week against a really good rushing defense and a terrible game script against the Lions, and he still ran well, which I think like everything shaped up for this past week to be a bust week for him. You're going up against a pretty good rushing defense, and you're getting pummeled. And still played great. I mean, realistically looking at this, the Patriots rushing defense is worse. They're not playing physical football. I don't think that they've gotten too much of a fire lit under their ass that they're going to come out and play that hard. I just really like Pollard here.
Yeah, no, I love Pollard, especially if they're going to give him 15 plus carries, not including the targets for 4 or 5, 6 targets a game. Must start, especially when you drafted him in the 9th, 10th round.
Yeah. And you have such an issue right now at quarterback that when you're in a must-win game like this one is, if you're Tennessee, you have to be beating the Patriots. If you're in a must-win game like this, you're going to lean on something that will not turn the ball.
Of course.
Knock on wood here that he's not going to have 3 fumbles, that will not turn the ball over like Mason Rudolph and Will Levis are doing, whichever one you decide to start.
I think Will Levis is going to be back.
Is he going to be back?
Yeah.
I mean, even then, I think Will Levis, clearly you've gotten a lot of hate, and not hate. I mean, as due criticism, like you should be getting for turning the ball over. I would expect dump offs this week, right? Pollard might have 6 catches just because Will Levis is scared to throw it into dangerous situations. So I love Pollard this week. I'd expect 15 to 20 touches, 100 plus all-purpose yards, and a couple catches in there too.
Love it. I mean, sign me up for a flex, a flex or a RB2. Sign me up.
Yeah. I mean, dude, last week we were right on it with everything other than Javonte. 5 out of 6 last week.
The game script was great too. Jaleel McLaughlin had that rushing touchdown. We were this close.
We were so close to it. But this is the week. It's lining up well. We've been inching to the finish line, but I think it's right here. We can smell it.
We've been smelling it for 3 weeks now.
Dude, it's been like sitting on the table, just barely out of reach, and you're handcuffed or something. But we're right here. But that's all we got for today. Those 6 guys that we have, and like we said, it's shaping up to be good. Brian Robinson against the Giants, Kareem Hunt against the Bucks, Devontae Smith against the Jaguars, Tony Pollard versus the Patriots, and Cade Otton versus the Chiefs. 6 players here. We're shaping up really well. Again, hit that subscribe button. Over 96% of you guys are not subscribed. Super easy and free to do. Other than that, though, this has been the Sports Geeks podcast. They play, we talk. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.